You're listening to the NeuroSpice Life podcast.
I'm Hanna, sexologist, sensologist, lovable weirdo, oversharer, and not sorry about it.
And I'm Freya, alexithymic counsellor, mum, chaos wrangler, and happy little steamroller.
Whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, our podcast is for everybody and every brain that has ever been labelled. Welcome back. I'm Hanna.
And I'm Freya.
And today we are going to talk about stupid.
All things stupid.
All things stupid. And again, stupid is such a difficult label to deal with because, again, this is not neurodiverse singular. It's something that I think a lot of people can relate to.
Yeah, for sure. And I think no matter how smart you are, you've probably been called stupid in
At
some
least
sort
once.
of capacity in your life. Yeah, whether it's emotionally stupid, like academically stupid.
Street stupid.
Street stupid. Oh my.
The things you learn as a teenager.
The things you can learn. So yeah, it's one of those things I think resonates for a lot of us.
Yeah. I mean, stupid, I definitely have an early memory of being called stupid, except it wasn't those particular words, but it carried the same meaning. And I remember that I was doing some chores and a non-related caregiver, when I said, all right, I'm done. And I was going to go inside because, of course, I wanted to go and read my book and I wanted to go do stuff that wasn't weeding because weeding was boring.
Yeah.
And they lifted up a bush and there was a whole bunch of weeds under there. And then they looked at me and they were like, literally said to me, you're going to end up at checkout chick at Coles.
Okay, one, that's not a bad thing. Two, I know exactly who you talk about when you say the non-related caregiver. That's very diplomatic of you. And three, wow.
And I was 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your whole life based upon how you weed a garden.
Yep. Because I had missed a detail and there was, it was basically saying that you're so stupid that you can't finish the job.
Yeah.
Which, again, is highly disrespectful to people who have to be in a customer service role all day, every day. That's actually highly detail-oriented.
Yeah. I couldn't do that job. I'd be fired in like 3 seconds flat.
But,
1, people. 2, accuracy. Yeah, we're not going to be friends.
But I mean, that's, and it's such a bizarre thing because in that moment, as an adult who was unable to think about what it was like to be a child and applying adult standards to a child. And it was such a striking moment. And obviously I remember it
really well.
But yeah, that was probably my earliest memory.
And it's really interesting in that too, like the focusing on the 10% that's not done as opposed to the 90% that has.
100%.
And your energy and enthusiasm and your sense of achievement. And just like I can see that being popped just like a balloon in that moment.
Totally deflated.
Yeah.
Because I thought I had done a good enough job. Because no.
And what about at school?
School was a bit different because it came down to not being able to hand things in.
Yeah.
But it was done, I think it was more maths related because maths for me, I remember a teacher, they asked me to explain something and they literally said to me in front of everybody, they said, what are you, stupid?
Welcome to the 90s education system, fellows. Wow.
And again, it's really quite striking because rather than being able to focus on what help does this child need in this moment, it was taken as such a negative deficit. Whether it's I didn't understand the question or I wasn't able to explain it because my brain was basically making word soup.
Yeah.
It was such a striking moment, again, of the failure of the education system to conform to a certain standard or requirement.
Yeah.
And whether it's listening or sitting still or whatever the case may be, I think about the education system from the lens of an ADHD.
Yeah.
And the idea of sitting in an institution for, 6 hours a day? 6-7 hours a day, and having to sit still and have scheduled breaks and not be able to fidget, not being able to yawn, not being able to get up when you need to expel some energy from your body.
Yeah.
It's such a so when you're physically restless and you can't exhibit that, then you have a restless brain.
Yeah, you can't hold attention. And like, interesting you say that too, right? Like, it's also thinking about things like in particularly high school, right? It's the transitions all day. Like, you've got 40 or 50-minute periods, you know, where you're there and you're focused and you physically pack everything up and move and all of that kind of stuff. And like, I remember for me, I would just be like, I just feel like my brain's just starting to get going and like I'm really into it and I'm in a flow and I'm in a tunnel, and then boom, the bell goes and on to the next thing. And like, one of my favorite times was like, I think it was year 11 or year 10 maybe, where they started doing double periods.
Yes.
Oh gosh, was that like the best day ever? And like being able to go, you know what, I'm going to be in maths, but I'm going to be in it for the next hour and a half.
Well, because then your brain's got a surety.
Yeah.
Of where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing.
Yeah. And you've got that time as well to settle in, get adjusted, get acclimated, start the work, do it, get deep into it, and then work through. And I just remember how much easier and more sensible that seemed to me.
Yeah. I mean, I always found, you know, if it was a double period of math, I mean, it was akin to torture. The thing about schools in particular as well, and the thing that I really rail against is this idea that everybody has to conform to a certain standard in order to be considered smart. And it never actually made sense to me, because I think about the school system and I think about the fact that it really caters to neurotypical. And when you think about the level of resources required, when you think about class sizes, when you think about teachers, everything that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and either one of two things happens, is that if you can't keep up, you get left behind.
Yes.
And often the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah.
So if you're the troublemaker in the class, if you're the one that's causing the most amount of fuss, chances are that kid's the one that's left behind.
Yeah.
Whereas
they get written off, it's too hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whereas I was quiet and I wasn't the loud kid. I didn't cause distractions. But when things weren't going well, nobody took the time to actually sort of understand why. And when I wasn't able to articulate why, you know, people would be like, why can't you do this? I don't know.
Yeah. Just do it.
And then you're seen as being either stupid on purpose or you're being obstinate.
Yeah, or choosing to be stupid.
Yeah.
I love that one. And it's interesting as you say that too, right? Because I think about in class too, and those expectations that can then get carried of like, you know, we find ourselves in these buckets like, you're a C student. So like, you know what?
I'm going to pay you X amount of attention.
Yeah, and also like I expect you to be a C student, not looking at, well, actually you have the capability of being an A student if you're in the right environment for you.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that happens just, you know, as a byproduct of the system that we're in. And I hate grading is like another thing, another tangent that might go off on a little bit later. But, you know, it's really, really challenging. And, you know, props off again, teaching, another job I could not do.
It's hard.
Because people.
Two kids.
Two kids. No, but like just managing the different priorities and the sheer number of things you need to do and explaining things in different ways, you know, so that different people can understand them and get something for them, and you know, and monitoring different needs and different wants and the social dynamics and the emotional well-being. And yeah, it's a full-on, like it is absolutely a full-on thing. And I don't think, you know, I mean, looking back at some of the teachers that we had, I do question, but like nowadays I don't think you go into teaching unless you're really passionate about kids and unless you really want to help kids and support kids. And it's just really unfortunate that a lot of the systems actually kind of stop that from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, teaching, look, again, it's not something that I could imagine myself doing.
Yeah.
But the struggles that I hear from teachers, particularly they're expected to be both babysitter and tutor, like individual tutor. And the shift in the framework now, like when I was growing up, if a teacher sent a letter home to my mum, it would be an automatic, well, you've done something wrong. And now I hear a lot, it's the inverse, which is if the teacher disciplines a student, then the teacher is the one that gets the flack as to, well, you should have done better, you should have done something different, it's your responsibility. And I think about behavior and how it is often interpreted quite a lot, particularly within the school system. You know, I've got a stepson going through that at the moment. And it's really, as far as I can tell, It's there for the people who can work within the system,
Yeah.
who can make achievements with little fuss, while also at the same time ensuring that they get you up to a broad standard of which I don't necessarily agree with, in order to make you good enough to then essentially go to university. And I find this whole concept of knowing what you want to do at such a young age to be
Wild.
completely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Because it was only when I was in my late 30s that I was actually talking to a friend about wanting to do a podcast about, sex and my hilarious dating catastrophes and my experience of online dating before I met my husband. And she said to me, well, why don't you do a grad dip in sexology? Because that way you'll have credentials behind you in order to actually say something.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever even heard of sexology.
Yeah. Like you can do this as a job?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that, had I known about it sooner, it's something I would have done sooner. And I feel like there's this expectation that we have both on ourselves and also on children to know what we want to do when most people don't. And it really only comes from having conversations or having a different experience that opens a door that you never knew was there before.
So true. And like I think about it, like I'm on my third career now, and it's like I've no sign of stopping anytime soon. But like I also find it funny in like the school system too, right? How it's so general and it's generalized, and we all go through these sort of stages at the same time. But then as soon as you finish school, it's specialized, right? And you get employed for the stuff you're really good at and your different talents and unique abilities, right? And that's the stuff that shines through, and usually the things that you're drawn to, right, as a career. And so I find it really, really interesting that the schooling system that sits underneath it doesn't necessarily then support that later, if that makes sense. Like I can understand you need a broad sense of learning, but there seems like it sort of seems unrealistic that people will be equally good at English, maths, science, physical education, art, or different languages, whatever that might be.
You're expected to get consistently, at least high to medium grades across all of them.
Yeah. While being a joiner, while doing all these other different things, and exhibiting
because
behaviours.
You've got to play team sports, and you've got to exhibit a certain amount of characteristics that society finds acceptable. In order to then feel accomplished
to do it. Yeah. And the whole time as well, like you're being compared to other people. And I know, like when we were preparing for this pod, like I hope it's okay that I share this, but like how you were saying that you'd look at me and you'd be like, God, she's like so smart. Like I wish it sounds really arrogant as I'm like, she was talking about me and I'm so smart. But the purpose is like I was comparing myself to other people and still feeling less than.
Yeah.
And actually like looking at like my siblings and their natural intellect way higher, right? Like than mine, like disturbingly so. Like traditional IQ type testing and that sort of stuff, or other high potential kids at school that were being skipped grades or whatever those scenarios might be, that you've got these comparison points. And so no matter where you're at in school and no matter where you sit within the bell curve, there's always going to be someone ahead of you or above you, or who finds a particular topic or who finds a particular thing easy. And like I was oblivious to anyone sort of like I'd get that I'll get called nerd and stuff like that, whatever, every now and then, and that's
just another label.
And just another label. Add that in the list. But like, it was really interesting that I never really felt I was actually all that smart, if that makes sense.
Which is just wild because, I think, it's interesting when you've got the opportunity to hear somebody else's reflection of you.
Yeah.
Because the internal thought is that, you might look at yourself and go, oh, well, I'm really stupid. I haven't accomplished that. I remember, I think you were turning a milestone. I can't remember which birthday it was. And you were really upset. And I couldn't understand why. And you, I think, said to me something along the lines of, well, I'm not a brain surgeon. And I haven't cured some unnamed disease yet. And you were really upset that you hadn't achieved something that you hadn't actually set a path out to do.
Yeah.
But you felt that you had this insanely high expectation of yourself. And then, Yeah, when I would turn 40, I had something very similar where I always feel weird about my birthdays, and I think that happened ever since I turned 18, when I was expected to be an adult, and I didn't
Straight
want to
away.
adult. I hated adulting,
Yeah.
and I still rail against many of the expectations and structures that we have, at least internally. And the thing that helped me realize exactly what I had achieved in my life was writing a list, because I have a very jelly-like sense of time. And when I sat down and I said, right, what have I actually accomplished? What have I done? And I listed it all out, and I thought about all the times where I traveled by myself.
Yeah.
I had to do things on my own for the first time. I had to learn by doing.
Yeah.
And if you had told me the theory of doing it, somebody had verbally explained that to me beforehand, I'd be like, that's great. I have no idea what you're talking about. I can't understand what you mean. And it was only through doing it that I actually grasped the sense of what I needed to do, how I needed to do it. And so I began to realize that where I'd considered myself to be stupid in the past was actually because I was expected to understand a series of verbal instructions without framework, reference, or context.
Yeah.
And
that's not how your brain works.
That's not how my brain works.
Yeah.
So kinetic learning, visual learning, those are two of my biggest ones. And also I find writing. If I write it down, it helps me to remember it. But I can't write it down. I can't just be on a laptop or a phone or something like that. I physically have to write it.
Yeah. And actually pen to paper.
Yeah.
But again, that's a kinetic sensation, right?
100%.
Like it's an act of doing.
And because I can visualize it, I can recall it in my memory.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's finding ways to work with your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if I ask you where the petrol station is, and you say, go down this road, take a left, then take a right, and then hit the main road and da-da-da, all I can hear is monkey purple dishwasher.
As you were saying that, I was like, la, la, la. My head was going to the shopping list. I was like, oh, God, time to check out. But it's so true, right? And it's, again, a lot of learning that is delivered, and it's getting better and better, right? But it's about finding what works with your brain and for your brain, and learning in a style that is natural to you. Like, I still remember one friend, and like, not seriously like threats of violence or anything like that, but I do remember desperately wanting to stab her with a crochet hook, and it was so sweet. And she was trying to teach me how to crochet, and it was sweet that she was helping me, not sweet that I wanted to stab her with a crochet hook. But she was trying to teach me how to crochet, and it was like a big thing, and it was really nice of her to do it.
I remember the friend.
But like, she kept wanting to show me, and then for me to do it. And I'm like, no, I need to, I need to do it as you. And so it became this like huge wrestle, like, over the crochet hook, because she was like, her way of teaching was to do it and then to expect you to do it. And my way of learning was, as I'm doing it, show me what I'm doing, because I need that to encode that with muscle memory. P.S. The blanket never got finished. It didn't get past like 4 little triangles. It ended up becoming more of like a rat's tail, right? But it's that sheer frustration too when you're trying to learn something new that's hard, especially if it doesn't come naturally, and you're being required to learn it in a way that is not how your brain works.
Yeah.
It's not how your brain works. And there's the most amazing reframe, and it's like this website called Stimpunks that I absolutely love, and of ADHD, and it describes it as the kinetic cognitive style, as opposed to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and actually talking about how a lot of the strengths that exist within that brain are like, like hunter-gatherer times, like there was a place and this is how we do it, but reflecting it back to actually this is a different learning style. So the ability to stay up all night because you've got different circadian rhythms, being able to hold your, attention and focus and not have breaks and all that sort of stuff while you're waiting for prey, to be able to notice the smallest of details and threats in an environment, right?
Like animals camouflaging, or, snakes moving through the grass.
All of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then being able to do that and just keep going for days and days and days on edge. And we look at it and go, well, the brain, we know, hasn't evolved all that much. It's the environment around that brain that's changed. And modern education has really only been, past 150 odd years. I mean, realistically, it's sort of industrial revolution times where it started to get people into it en masse, and it wasn't just something of the rich after World War II as well. Like, so.
I mean, it was designed so that kids could basically end up as factory workers.
Yes.
So you were marked as to how well you could recall certain instructions and sit exams or tests and things like that, and how well you could sit in an environment for a certain period of time.
So you could find a factory role in the factory.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think about a lot about the frameworks that our society has essentially built on, and I think that's probably the key point, which is that established a foundation.
Yeah.
The foundation was never gone back and recreated. It was established, and then things were built on top of it. So it might be a shaky house of cards, but it is our shaky house of cards. Like
we have created it.
It's the only system that we have.
Yeah.
And I say that not excluding any other systems around the world. I know that it can vary wildly, and I know that Steiner schools are making a big change as to making sure that it caters to the different learning styles of children. And the thing that
Montessori has been doing it for a while, and there's Waldorf, and there's lots of different
schools,
lots of different school types, but they're still built largely on the same premise.
But there's also the stigma that that's an alternative school. It's different.
It's different,
and therefore it's not the same, and it's not mainstream.
Yeah.
And even homeschooling has picked up a lot of popularity over the years. Now, you could argue that's for various reasons, and whether test scores come out better, but at the end of the day, it largely relies on the structure, the educator, and the curriculum as well. If you can learn the curriculum in a different way that isn't within a structured environment, hats off, go for your life.
And there's homeschooling, and there's also unschooling as well, which is a new layer on that as well, which is instead of taking the stuff that doesn't work in the education system and bringing it home and replicating it there, it's actually completely changing the role of the learner and the educator and all of those different things. So it's this beautiful spectrum of learning now that's evolving, and it's really great to see that move and change and evolve with us. But I think is a good thing of whatever education system you're in, or the education system your child's in, understanding the parameters that exist for that system and how you can best work within the system that you're in, because it's not necessarily going to be possible for everybody to access different types of education, but also as well, what's the end output that you're actually looking for. And, for me, I've always found it really strange with the school system too, that there's so much pressure, as you said, by 18 to know what you want to do, or 17 to know what you want to do.
And then take on a huge amount of debt to go to university.
It. Exactly right. But the crazy thing is, you can apply as a mature age student at 21 without high school degrees or qualifications, all of that sort of stuff. So it's like literally you're talking in the, 3 years. But what alternate pathways, and what different careers and different jobs, there are so many different things that we can do these days, and to feel smart at whatever it is that we're doing.
But you're also a product of your own environment, right?
Yeah.
So there's expectations which could be laid upon, as in whether you will go to university or not. Yeah. For my mum's generation, my mum, in hindsight, isn't saying basically that she would have done interior design in another life, but she was never encouraged to go to university, which that changed later as an outlook, even for my grandparents. There was, I think, some regret there at the end.
Because all her brothers went to university and ended up with quite high private careers, but the girls in the family went to
secretary school or nursing school or things like that. And they're all beautiful jobs, but in that time they were seen as women's work. They were seen as lesser than.
There was a ceiling.
Yeah. And also when it comes to children as well, is that, again, you're asking them to make what feels like, because there's the onus behind it, or the impetus behind it, which is, what do you want to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Because apparently, we're still changing, but we're still stuck in this framework of, what do you want to spend your next 4 years studying, and then what do you want to spend essentially the next 10 to 20 years doing?
Yeah.
And, then the idea of locking into one thing for me was so overwhelming, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. Couldn't pick anything because I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
I was going to be the witch in the woods that had the house and had a beautiful garden and made, herbal potions.
I love that for you.
But then I was also going to be the librarian in a really old library in an old university somewhere, delicately handling books. But then I was also going to be, a model or a singer or something like that. And that had all these wildly conflicting ideas and looking at a life and going, well, there's not enough time to do everything.
Yep.
So choosing one feels bizarre. So I feel like I sort of swung from thing to thing until I sort of essentially found things that fit, because either somebody saw skills or an opportunity or something along those lines, or whether the fates aligned and then there was just that opportunity right there and I was in the right time in the right place, and all of those things can be true and accurate. But I can certainly say that what I originally studied at university is certainly not what I'm doing right now.
For the record, it was photography.
Yeah, it was photography. Yeah, it was art school.
And then you did like a marketing qualification after.
It was graphic design and design communication.
Yeah, and then that was kind of, I think, an appeasement of people to get a real qualification.
That was the then boyfriend at the time.
Yes, we remember him fondly. And then after that's like really, then you've just developed a career that has nothing to do with either of those things, and into project management and program delivery and project delivery in the IT space now, or technology space, and that's what you're doing. But you've also got this side practice as well, like where you're actually doing your passion work, which is sex therapy.
Yep.
So you've been able to carve out different spaces. So one's like the reliability of the income and the certainty of a job and something that you can do well without a lot of thought. And then you've also got your passion area and
being able to cross it over too. Yeah. Like the DEI space was very big for me.
DEI, diversity and inclusion?
Diversity, equity and inclusion.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yes. That's all right. Wasn't sure of the E. Yes.
Well, finding that opportunity as well to be a part of the Pride Committee, being able to co-lead that with some really amazing people as well.
Yeah.
And finding, speaking opportunities to be able to educate other people on, not just what isn't working, but how to change and how to understand, well, I did all these things. So what? Why isn't this working? Why aren't we getting the results that we wanted?
And I think that's such a beautiful part about your brain too, is your ability to see that and to see that light on the horizon, and then to paint that picture to take people along for the ride. I've always envied you around how you're able to do that. It's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah. But finding your niche is really difficult when you're a kid, unless it comes naturally to you. And when you think about the generic expectation of, well, you're good at this, so you will do this.
Yeah.
But the question rarely isn't asked. Well, the question that's not really asked is, do you enjoy it?
And for us neurodivergent people, that's so important to have a job that's aligned to our values and to align to our areas of interest, our passions or our spins is so critical. It's like, I know for me, like the minute my values are crossed, if that's like, thou shalt not pass, like that is like, dump, I'm out, right? If ever a toy is to be thrown out of the pram, that is what it'll like happen over. Is that misalignment? Is that misalignment of like values and being able to see that. So, again, looking at what am I good at? What is easy for me? And what do I enjoy doing? And finding some intersectionality that exists within that and some opportunity in that, as opposed to looking at the outcome is doctor, the outcome is nurse, the outcome is dentist. I don't know why I'm stuck on healthcare, but, like that's so often what we do is looking to put someone in a box, in a career, like an outcome, as opposed to really taking a step back. And I wish I'd had sort of careers and thinking explained to me that way a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I certainly remember my careers counsellor, and there was certainly none of the hope of the future that can be so prevalent now.
No. But it was very narrow. Like it was, you need to what's your next step?
Yeah, you need to understand . Yeah. It was never sort of done with any kind of levity or this understanding that you're so young.
Yeah.
Go out, go learn stuff, go make mistakes, go figure it out what you want to do, rather than trying to almost desperately scramble around to try and find something that's going to appease people in your life, that you have grown up, that you've gotten serious.
Yeah.
that you've discovered a pathway. And I think for parents as well, there's the fear of wanting to know that your kids are going to be okay in their chosen field.
In life, I think, and such a big part of that we see is the ability to earn money, right? And employment and contribute, and are they going to be okay? And actually, they'll probably be fine.
So many kids too, like hearing that they want to be an influencer or they want to be, a YouTuber or things like that.
My daughter currently wants to be a mermaid, folks.
I mean,
that's cool.
When I was in year 6, I said on tape, apparently it still exists somewhere, that I wanted to own lots of cats as a career.
It can still happen.
It can still happen. Well, I've changed cats to dogs.
Cats to dogs, that's okay.
But, everybody wanted to be a ballerina or a princess or things like that.
But you loved animals.
I loved animals. And then I wanted to be a vet for a period of time. And I remember I said to a different relative, and I said, I want to be in PR. And PR, darling. Well, that was actually why. It was because I was probably quite impressionable. I don't know if Eddie from Absolutely Fabulous was the best role model that one could have.
But it's one we latched onto.
But it was one we latched onto, especially the time when I was getting my wisdom teeth out. And I remember I was sitting across from the surgeon, and he said to me, "Do you want general or local anaesthetic? Because, we can do this with local." And I remember saying, local anaesthetic? I want total sensory deprivation and backup drugs. And that horrified my mother, who was sitting right there. And I think I was 14.
Yep.
And so I have Jennifer Saunders to thank for that line. But coming into the expectation and understanding of what each of those careers actually meant. So PR, for example, I was thinking that it was all champagne and swanning
jets
around and going behind stage at fashion shows and things like that. And my relative gave me essentially the equivalent of a cold bucket of water to the face, and said, well, the reality is, if there was an oil spill and your client needed you to spin that,
would you be able to do it?
And the answer was no. So best I know that now, but it was
pretty harsh.
It was pretty harsh. Yeah. I felt very like somebody had just let all the air out of my balloon
to do it. But it's like, at least in that, it was like more of an ethical thing as opposed to like you're too stupid.
Well, and because it crossed my values.
Yeah, it crossed your values. Yeah. And it's interesting, like, as you talk about this, like, did stupid for you finish in school? Because I know for me, it definitely hadn't, and it probably took on a different tone as I got older. And like, I know for me and like for a lot of the clients I deal with is this duopoly that exists between the moments of brilliance and the intelligence and the stuff that's super easy for us, and what I call the moments of dumb and like the moments of stupid. So like at corporate life, like things like I would be managing really complex multi-million-dollar projects and large teams and delivering outcomes and literally being put in charge of an area to go in and fix something, right, that nobody else would be able to. Again, like I was kind of the last resort, right? I was the fixer and the problem solver, right, and huge expectations and pressure. And I was doing that really, really well, but like literally to the point that like I would forget my building pass, and even though I had my train ticket and everything else attached to it, the security team downstairs actually had like a business, like a building pass set aside for me. Because it's like, she's going to go in the building and do amazing things today if she can get in. But like, and it's just like this weird thing that exists in my brain, or like I'm cooking like a 7-course meal for like 12 people. It's this amazing dinner, and I realize I've forgotten to get cheese, and I go to the shops to buy the cheese, and I come home with 7 things, none of which are cheese. And it's like, oh Christ, here we go back to the shops again and repeat the process, like, and just these constant, like, so, or following like a detailed process. Like there was like assembling a bike for my child, and all that really needed to happen was wheels to go on and a bell, right? And some pedals. It wasn't that complicated, but for me it was like climbing Everest, like this detailed process of what needs to go in where and all the rest of it. And I'm just like, I can't do that, and it's like, it's just this difference that exists between the peaks and the valleys, or like the highs and the lows. And like I know a lot of the clients I work with, they're like, I feel like I'm not adulting. Like, I'm not doing adulting right. Like, if I can't do the basic, simple stuff, it doesn't matter how good I am at doing this other stuff.
Yeah.
But I can't do the really straightforward stuff.
Yeah. Well, the generic stuff, because even time management is considered to be a level of stupidity.
Yeah. Like, because, how hard is it, right?
Yeah. Why can't you manage your time?
Yeah.
And so the expectation there. And so I really feel like it can really drive a kind of level of anxiety or depression, because once you get in the funk of I'm just too stupid.
Yeah.
And I really feel like this stupid label certainly holds back a lot of the people that I speak to, either how it shows up in relationships, because, I was too stupid to do da-da-da, or I was stupid and I did da-da-da. When you break down the action itself is not stupid. It might be careless in the moment. It might be something that you hadn't considered because you started out with good intentions, but then it didn't end up that way.
Yeah.
So when you actually sit there and break down with somebody, well, what does stupid mean to you? And two, how can we reframe this to have a little bit more compassion? And I think about with kids, right? Like, they drop something, they knock something over, they've got no kind of sense of awareness of their own bodies or whatever the case may be. And then often they'll just go, silly me, and pick it up, deal with it, and move on. And for some reason, we've developed this bizarre kind of, it's not a coping mechanism, it's actually it's a trapping mechanism to keep ourselves locked in this constant cycle of, I'm too stupid, look what I've done. And I think about the wasted opportunity that people have had, where that label, regardless of where they might be in life, is actually subconsciously or consciously holding them back, not just from achieving your potential, because I kind of think this whole, like, you have to unlock and achieve your full potential is just another corporate way of saying you need to do more and hustle and continue to feed the system. But when I hear from people that I wish I had done, and it's the regret. Yeah. I wish I had done this, because knowing what I know now, I was capable back then, but I told myself I wasn't able to do it.
And I think one thing that's really helped me find grace in this, and again, with a lot of clients I work with, is this concept of starry profiles. And I'm not sure if you've heard of that one before, but it's something that exists with us neurodivergent people. And it's been noted for a really, really long time back. It's sometimes referred to as spiky profiles, but now we try and refer to it as star profiles, because it's the idea that every brain has got its own unique imprint, right? And its own unique pattern of brilliance. And stuff that's going to be easier is kind of like if you hold up your hand and you look at it and you go, well, there's going to be stuff that's going to be easier, and that's like the tips of your fingers or the tips of the stars. And the shape of your star, the shape of your hand can vary a lot. And then there's going to be things that are harder, right? And they're kind of the things that are like the dips in your hand, right? And they're the things that are going to be stickier, the things that have resistance, the things you may not get right all the time, like remembering your building pass or being on time for a meeting, right? Following a detailed process. There are going to be some things that are easier for certain brains and some things that are harder for certain brains. And it's creating that space where both of those things can exist. And what typically happens in neurotypical development, that's a lot of typicals, is that it's the variation between those points is significantly less. So you're more likely to get a predictable star shape, right? So more something that might look more like a patty pan, right? Where it's like the difference between the highs and the lows, and the difference between the easy and the hard is much, much smaller. In a neurodivergent brain, it's much bigger, right? So like there's this story I love of a guy I met years ago, and he was like a really good surgeon, like a phenomenal surgeon, would be flown around the world to do really complex medical procedures, and was pioneering things, researching stuff, coming up with things that nobody else in the world could, and standing on his feet 12 hours a day doing complex operations. He also couldn't make his own bed because he couldn't remember the steps of the process and follow the process to make his bed. So he'd literally look at it in the morning and be like, that's a puzzle I cannot solve, right? And he goes, yeah, and both these things exist in my brain. As he said, but I can hire a cleaner. Like, I can hire someone to help me with that. Like, I don't have to do it all, on my own. He goes, I would much rather be working my passions, 12 hours a day.
But do you hear from people a lot that the label stupid also comes from, I need to do this on my own, and if I can't do it on my own, therefore I'm stupid?
It's a little bit, I think, around that, need to do it on my own, but that expectation that we need to be all things equally. and actually to often we use at the tippy points of our stars, right, and all of those like those peaks to mask and hide those things that are hard for us, rather than owning them and stepping into them and like finding some accommodations, finding some strategies. It might be other people, it might be things to help, but being open that actually, yeah, some stuff is going to be hard. Like I was laughing the other day because literally I'd, with like a gallon of coffee, an AI person thing, right, and all the rest of it, I'd managed to go from not understanding SEO to be able to get my SEO ranked like number one on Google and have the AI, the Google bots referencing my website in like a range of different areas, right? And that's like apparently very hard to do, right? Not with coffee. But like, like apparently that's something that's really, really complicated, right? And really like, I've talked to people in IT and they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, just worked it out.
Yeah.
I just did it, right? And I was dancing around my house celebrating, right, this fact that I'd done this all the time without wearing pants. And it took me 25 minutes to get a pair of pants on because I kept getting stuck on side quests and forgetting that I was not wearing pants. And I think this is now the second time we've talked about one of us.
If you're in England,
pants.
She means trousers.
Trousers. What does pants mean in England?
Underwear.
Oh, okay. Trousers. Yes. Trousers, jeans, some sort of paraphernalia on my bottom half. But like literally, and I'd go to the laundry and I'd do something and then I'd get stuck on something else and I'd walk away without pants, and this whole thing. And then just taking that moment to realize, and I'm dancing around celebrating this really amazing achievement without pants. And I think that sums it up really beautifully, right? And instead of looking at myself and chiding myself and judging myself for the fact that I haven't been able to put on pants today and I was about to leave a school drop-off, like it's creating that space to go, whoops, whoopsie daisy, silly me.
I don't know.
Go the pants.
In some circles, you get home, you take your pants off. I mean, that's,
yeah,
like
true.
That's the celebration there.
That's the celebration right there. But when it's in the morning and it's on the way to school and it's like, it's a slightly awkward conversation to have. Look, I have gone many, many times in slippers or with no shoes, and that's fine too. But it's this, we don't have to be all or one thing, right? And it's possible for the stupid to exist alongside the smart. And can we create this space and idea that there are different types of intelligence that maybe aren't recognised by a school system or by our corporate systems, and that there's different levels of intelligence, but every brain will find certain things easier and certain things harder.
Well, and again, coming back to the school system, right? If that's where your standard of what is smart and what is stupid developed, then at some point, I think it's okay to go back, and whether you imagine yourself holding the hand of your inner child, your high school student, imagining yourself at that stage of life and saying to your then self, that somebody else's standards and expectations does not define you as a human being is a really, really powerful statement. Because, I mean, there's a reason why people say that high school needs to be survived.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not just because of the other kids. It's generally from the weight of expectations that as a society and as a curriculum and structure and teachers and expectations of next steps, following the path, the safe path, going to university, all the rest of it. There are so many considerations around the fact that people learn at different times in their lives. People grow.
Yeah.
People have environmental impacts. People might have had trauma. There's so many different elements that need to be taken into consideration, and allowing a structure, as you say, that might only be 150 years old to define you as a person, to define your worth, is nonsensical.
Yeah. It's
dangerous and
not a good way
nonsensical.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good point to to pause and to take a moment invite our listeners to see how stupid shows up for you. Is this a label that you're carrying, and where does that come from? And to take a moment to observe that, and then next time we come back, I think we're going to chat a little bit more about how we can be more compassionate with that, potentially reframe, think about stupid a little bit more differently, and take that next step in our relabeling journey,
and look at our relationships to see if anybody is actually still using that label for us.
Yes. Suspense. Until next time,
we'll see you soon.
You're listening to the NeuroSpice Life podcast.
with Hanna and Freya, besties, brains, and more.
If you've enjoyed listening, follow us on YouTube or your favourite podcast app and share it with someone else who knows the sting of a sticky label.
We'll see you next time. Until then, stay spicy, stay wonderful.